So I had built from scratch a e-commerce, very successful. What the company thought it worked. So that's my success in my mind. Um, uh, B2B portal. And so I came over with that information and, realized that I would not be able to build it from scratch. Um, so, and the other thing is I knew that product management was a pain in the butt, and I knew that I couldn't do it. And I knew we needed something to manage that information. Initially, I looked at our internal PIM, and our internal PIM was not geared towards marketing information. It was a manufacturing PIM. And so when I looked at the attributes that were available, they just weren't there. Like the menu hierarchy wouldn't work. There was all kinds of things that just were not web ready. And for me, I was like, well, there's just so much difference between what we have and what we need that we have to have an intermediate stage, which would be we use PIM core. And so that I wasn't sure which DAM to use, digital asset management system. I did a lot of research and ended up with PIM core, and then CSS Commerce was they were a vendor, and that's how I hooked up with Tom, and we started from there. One of the things that I've worked with outsourced I had my own team for a long time. And then I had a transition period where I went offshore. And what I learned from offshore is that you will get exactly what you asked for, but hardly ever what you want. And so I spent about 6 months writing the spec, and I handed that to Tom, and I think he gulped, and it was probably 90 pages maybe. Which, I kind of did, not part-time. I was working on other projects at the time. So we started with that. I went with Magento Enterprise Edition, which is cloud commerce. And I'm not sure if that was a great decision, but at any rate, it certainly worked.
Yeah, it's worked.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the pricing is just absurd when you get to the 30 million, 50 million in sales.
Yep.
So I'm considering my options there. But at any rate, I think one of the very interesting parts of the process of the project was that I had this vision for a shopping cart that didn't just handle one door at a time. So if you're a cell phone dealer and you've got 100 stores, all the systems that are available on the planet make you go through one door at a time or upload a bulk file and just hope that it worked.
Let me interrupt with a little translation. Just guys, a door is a store, right?
Yes,
and
sorry.
And he's talking about essentially the independents, like they're reps of Verizon, but they're not a Verizon.
That's the vast majority of most of the cell phone stores that you see and visit are not owned by the carriers.
But there may be 100 of them. There may be 200 of them, all
500.
all under one owner. And then just so you guys know, Tom is my business partner. So when he says Tom, think me. All right, go ahead, Ted. Go ahead.
So I had this vision in my head of this like live Excel spreadsheet where the the stores would be across the top and the SKUs would be down the side. And I just thought, well, that doesn't seem like a bad thing. And we started working with the developers, and they're like, well, this is going to be harder than we all thought. And I'm like, no, it's not. Here, let me build a form that looks just like what I want. And by the time the form had built itself, I just basically iterated through the form fields, and I said 100 stores and 100 SKUs. And the form was so slow, it wouldn't move. I couldn't move the cursor.
Yeah.
Between the fields because the browsers are not meant, they're never designed to have 10,000 form fields in one session. And so it was a real challenge making that work from a technical perspective. And our first iteration of it, which was launched in 2019, was fairly slow if you had more than, say, 10 stores. And one of the things that Tom and Rob brought to the table was a kind of a fresh developer group. And they, I don't know if he'll probably at some point you may talk to Namesh and his team. And those guys are geniuses. Like they wrote the whole thing in JavaScript, which I wasn't really thrilled about, but I'm like, when I saw the speed, it was outstanding. So basically almost real time for everything now.
Yeah. And it's a great sales tool. So, but to bring it back to the PIM side of things, right? So, I mean, the good news is Marshall is on Magento as well, whether it's community or whatever it is. But the PIM side of things, right, is managing all the products, the descriptions, and it's part of the process that made it go faster, I believe. Would you agree, Ted? Just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I believe in, like, one of my main goals is system automation, especially for product management and in any interaction between Magento and our ERP / accounting system.
Which one do you use again, Ted?
Navision.
That's right.
It's a Navision. Microsoft product.
Yeah.
So I knew I didn't want to be dealing with products. So I was able to pull the information, whatever information I could from PIM and push it into PIMcore. And so for the most part, now that I've done the automation, we automated the menu system, so I read in the categories and then I push that to a server, and then PIMcore picks it up and creates the menus. The associations between the accessory and the handset's all automated. The only thing that's not automated is I insisted that some person go in and look at this stuff before it got published to the website. So we do have a process where we have a couple ladies or people that go in and they review any pending SKUs that popped up, and they may add an image or change some text if what came out of the PIM system wasn't very good.
So let me quickly interrupt. So the associations, right, in my mind, right, the ability to do that is a really great function that can come out of PIMs. And one of the things is that workflow, right? So whether it's totally automated or you want to interrupt the cycle with some eyes on it, either is really doable.
Yeah. PIMcore supports workflows. So if there might be one person that's supposed to be looking at images, and then they're like okay with images or descriptions, and then the next person goes and checks something else until it's the third person can authorize it to be pushed to Magento, and that's also automated.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Oh, go ahead, Ted.
No, I think that.
Yeah. So is there a follow-up question, right, on how on the usage? I can give you a couple other just a side comment in the sense of we have a plumbing parts distributor, right, who happens to be on another PIM, right, that we run. We obviously do. You all came to the content serve, right, but we do a few PIMs. Each has its plus and minus, and are the right solution for different situations, right, which is why we offer more than one PIM. But on this PIM, right, what we saw was exactly what Ted has been talking about, which is these associations and the enrichment. This is actually how we created our second S, right? Which is search, not SEO, but they have over 1 million SKUs, not online yet, right? And they wanted to put up their entire SKU of all these plumbing parts, you name it, right? So having the PIM handle all of that information, again, like Ted was talking about, made it much faster. I have another client who it was all about speed on Magento because of the number of SKUs. PIM really helps with that. But with this client, we began to realize, you know what, finding something inside 1 million SKUs is really hard. So having better data, better descriptions, better speed is really important. But also being able to pull that out based on stronger master data, better descriptions is really important. But then, right, we worked with them, and one of the unique things, I mean, the really great thing with Ted is this really unique, and he coined the phrase SKU by store. I like the description, right? You can buy whatever by store. This one, right, what we did in the solution is provide alternatives. So if you looked for a Kohler faucet, you'd see the Kohler faucet you searched for, but you'd also see their OEM that they make more money on and a couple others, right? So kind of the description, so that out of that, right, we can provide a bunch of different things. And I'm going to come back, Ted, on your results, but the results for them was their margins actually increased a little, right? Because they were selling more higher margin things. What's you recently had a big win because of your site and the work there, Ted, which I know my marketing is going to tout like crazy, but what's happened with your SKU by store and ease of use and things like that?
Well, we've had several of our customers come back and just say, look, this is like nobody's even close to you on this stuff. So we have an order approval process where if you have, like, let's say you have 5 buyers or 10 buyers, and 100 stores that each want to actually order for themselves, we can route all that through an approval process so that the approver gets a message and says, hey, can you approve this order? And then they go in and they can do it in bulk, or they can check for attributes, and then they can just push a button. And I don't think any of our competitors offer that. So, and the revenue's been just kind of really ramping up, which scares me from the Magento side from the Adobe side. But it's without sales, there's no point in me doing my job. So I think one of the things going back to PIM was that there's been a couple times where we had a database link go down, and these are all link servers, and marketing this is like right before a push to get a bunch of SKUs up on the site, and marketing lost their mind because they were like, how are we going to do this manually? Oh my God, we have to actually look up images. Where they were having to go into PIM and copy and paste. And it really highlighted at least how much automation makes a difference. And if you could just pull that over.
Yeah, can I ask a question then? So Rob, you touched on it. You said if Ted, you got over 1 million SKUs and they're
we don't have over 1 million.
Another customer of mine has over 1 million SKUs, but yeah, go ahead.
But I think, Ted, you were talking about it. So internally, are your people using PIM as a resource for searching for products?
Well, there's 2 PIMs. One's the PIM that's our like manufacturing PIM that most of the company uses, right? Yeah. Then we have PIM Core, which is our DAM, and hardly anybody in the company understands what that is. But the e-commerce side of the equation use it all the time, and everything that's applicable from the main manufacturing PIM is inside of PIM Core.
Yeah. So this is an opportunity I will give. Okay. One of the reasons why we represent more than one PIM, right? Just to be straight with you, Marshall, PIMcore is not the most user-friendly system in the world. It's very powerful, it's very customizable, but content serve, for example, is, in my opinion, if you're going to use it widely, is extremely, in fact, it is, they're a new partner of mine, but they are by far the easiest to use PIM I have personally encountered. We also work with Perfion. So, you know, since I'm covering a few, Perfion, if you're using a .NET based system, which doesn't sound like you are, but they do a great job there. So that's why I said different PIMs for different choices.
Okay. Yeah, because one of the examples is, you know, one of our top manufacturers, there's probably 50,000 items and we probably only have 17,000 on the website.
Mm-hmm.
But we keep the rest of it in our item catalog in P21 and we can pull those. But if we put a new item, if we quote a new item or bring a new item into the stock, it obviously doesn't automatically go on the website. We have to go through that process of manually putting it into the Magento and the images files and then uploading it.
So we handle that. That was a concern of mine way up front for us, because of the fact that the vast majority of the company is focused on shipping and manufacturing. And so what we came up with was what we call a price group code inside of our ERP. And I said, if you want anything to show up in the website, you're going to need to make a price group code with all the SKUs for it and the pricing for that version of it, you know, because and each customer group has a different price group code. But but what we do, or I do, is I scan the ERP for these price group codes that I'm aware of that are on the site, and that's our list. So all they have to do is update the price group code, and then I look for all those SKUs and pull in from PIM.
Yeah, something similar, but it's still manual. Every item that's on the web, you know, we created a user field in P21 and basically, you know, on website, you know, yes or no.
Yeah.
So I could pull everything that's on there, but if we go to add a new one, you got to mark that checkbox, yes, and then you still have to go into Magento and do it. So you might pull it off the website for Magento and forget to go into P21 and uncheck it. So it's still a manual process.
Yeah, our system will also take it off automatically.
Okay.
But I do depend on, you know, the ERP team doing their job.
Okay.
Right, which is where I wanted to interject, right? The benefit of PIM, right? Marketing people really shouldn't be in ERPs, in my opinion. Right,
They
so
aren't,
a process where if it, you know, so what we set up with another customer, right, is we feed everything into the PIM. That doesn't mean it goes live. It's just in the PIM. And then the marketing team can go in, use the PIM and decide what comes and actually schedule what goes on and off the website. I mean, these are all pretty common things. They can update photos or information, and they can do it globally. That's where the automation comes in, right? So another customer, right, a little more retail focused, which is honestly unusual for us, but they kind of have a distribution and retail business, so they somewhat fit. But they do a lot of sales, right? I mean, 30% off, you know, they're very Black Friday oriented, for example, because of the retail organization. And so what they do is they schedule their promotion, right? They use the PIM to pull it on and off, right? Whatever their special promotions are. And that way they're also on Magento, by the way. But because honestly, it just is the big dog in B2B. I mean, but they schedule it, it comes on and off, the descriptions change, and all of that is automated and it's done by date, for example.
Huh. Okay, that's interesting.
I mean, I essentially say, look, anybody on my team and anybody in marketing are not responsible for pricing, but we will take care of it once you set it.
Yeah. Agreed. Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like they have to make sure it's in the ERP, because otherwise even if I did it on my side, when the sale went back in, it would say, hey, why we have a price mismatch here? It would be rejected. So, you know, I basically say, if you set it up in the ERP correctly, you're golden. I'll make sure it works.
Okay, good. That was one we had talked about. We have a lot of unit of measure issues in our industry because a lot of things are priced by the 100, which would be like the C, or we do a lot of electrical wire sales where it's priced by the M, which is per 1,000.
No, I see.
And so that we'll have that in our system, and it'll show on the website, you know, $50 per C. Well, it's a box of nuts or fasteners, and it really comes down to the price is actually $5 per box. And so that scares customers away. So we were wondering, we can do conversions in the ERP system.
Yeah,
It just
I
has
wouldn't.
to do with rounding, and it becomes complicated. So I wasn't sure if the PIM would fit in that solution at all either.
Yeah, what I would do is I'd make a staging table, and I would use SSIS or stored procedures, and I'd grab that data, and you should be able to take a look at the type, and if it's you know, I think my guess is there's enough raw information in the ERP for that stored procedure to do its job and say, oh, this is pieces, this is feet, this is whatever.
Yeah.
And then
So
PIM4 would reach down into that and pull its attributes.
you can do it
Okay.
that way. You can also do it in the PIM, right? So your counterpoint, right, with the plumbing parts distributor, for example, they have similar issues, right? And let me describe another issue that actually drove some of what was going on. They have this customer has very dynamic, demand-driven custom pricing. It's really interesting what they've done. It's one of their secret sauces. I've never seen the code, but what they do is, what we do is we take in, right, these common measures, right, convert them, write them out, drop them into a variety of pickable decisions that can be put up on the website, right? We use the PIM in this way because, for example, one of their problems, which I doubt you have, Marshall, but they did, which is if you searched on inch, it's fine. You use the quotation mark in their search, it blew up, right? They couldn't handle it. So what we did, right, is we essentially put together a library, if you will, of standardizations, put it in the PIM, connected it to the products, right, automatically, so that if it's quarter inch, whatever it is, or in millimeters, etc., right, it automatically could not only read it inside the search, but connect it directly to all the products and break it down by, right? I have another customer, right? They sell almost by the pallet load, by the container box, as well as by the individual box. They're in sporting goods. And all of that has to be, they'll break open a pallet, right, to sell it, but people buy in a variety of different quantities, and they handle that as well.
Okay.
But Ted is right,
Yeah.
because Ted's really smart guy. It can also be done the way he said.
I have control issues. And
I know.
so if I put it in my own database, I know if it's messed up, I did it and know how to fix it.
I know, Ted.
There's no auto magic part of it there. If I send it to PIMcore and I don't know what's happening, but we do a lot of the things that we do are done in PIMcore, and handled internally.
Yep.
So internally to PIMcore, like it'll make a decision and post it. A lot of that stuff is not. A lot of it is more. It's obviously what I would consider, product-based information, but you can go either way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Another question I have, one thing that we come up quite a bit in our industry is like a manufacturing. They're starting to do more of their internal catalogs through like SAP or whatever ERP system they're on. So, traditionally we do what's known as punch outs, where their ERP system goes into our website, places an order in the shopping cart goes into their ERP system, and then they send us a PO for that. What they're saying now is instead of going into the individual distributors' websites, they want to say, no, you send us all the data. And so we have a big internal catalog that our people can search for the best pricing and whatnot. So this is where I believe a PIM would be pushing. We can kind of do it through Magento, but I don't know all the terms, excuse me, but we're going to be pushing it through, FTP or certain ways. So it's live data and, pricing and inventory, different things of that nature.
Have they talked about our API?
Yeah, we've talked about APIs. This particular one that we were working on last, I don't believe it was API. I have to look to see what it was. But API is one that we have done and we utilize.
Yeah, I mean, it all. You're probably more than likely your PIM core is going to be your master data. It's going to be the source of the truth because it's been finessed inside there.
Yep.
Well, and for example, we've been doing connections both ways, right? We're working with a company where we're bringing in directly content from the manufacturers, right, to do updates. We've got and then on the flip side, right, sending out data from their PIM to connections we've built with a essentially, call it a third-party aggregator that puts it out to everyone, right? And then I've got a new client who's doing something very similar to you. They build electrified trays, which is for the oil industry, refining industry, and they send essentially a data packet to anyone based on a request, right? So if you go in, you put together a bill of materials, that gets sent out. And again, all of that gets assembled product-wise because it's custom through a PIM. Some quick examples. Ted, are you still okay on time?
Yeah, I'm good.
Thank you. Okay. I only asked you for half an hour. Tony, any questions? High, low? Marshall, keep going. Is there any topic, e-commerce topic as well? ERP? Everything's open.
Part of it, I actually haven't seen the software of different PIMs. I envision this big master Excel spreadsheet, basically. So it's how do you handle your taxonomy of all the items? We've got one built on the website, but they're not all aligned. So my vision is you're going out to column ZZZ with everything you add for different unit measures, different taxonomy, all the different attributes, different filters, or if there's a way to say
that'll be handled within PIM core. If you're going to use PIM core, it'll just, whenever you open that product, all the data that you would tip, your brain and my brain probably think about the spreadsheet, it'll be part of those form fields.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, it'll look almost like there'll be different tabs for all that information. And
that's why I wasn't sure. So if you've got a category of, say, fasteners, and you have another category for wire, do all the columns have to line up, or am I thinking about it totally wrong, where it's really based more on the product in a certain category, maybe?
What would be the two, which ones are you talking about again? So wire and what was the other one?
If it was wire and fasteners, I think is what I said. So, filters for fasteners are size, hardness, material, and wire would be size, which you could share. But then it would be, insulation, copper, aluminum, that type of stuff. So it'd be a little different. So that's why I envision where you're going to have all these columns to fit every filter that you create.
Well, I think of it more in terms of under the hood. So do you use SKUs for your primary tracking, or well, I'll just say SKU because that's an identifier, right? So
Like part number, yeah.
yeah, part number. So what you'll have under the hood is part number and category that it's in.
Mm-hmm.
And for that one in the database for that one product, you may have, it'll say fastener, and then it'll say, what type of fastener. So it'll have the same product listed again, but at a one level indented where it's let's say it's a nail. That you wouldn't sell nails, but or a screw, and then you have that part listed 40 times for everything that's applicable to it till it gets down to where it is the final, as far as you can go, if
Okay.
that makes sense.
Yeah, it
And
does make a little sense. Yeah.
and then to build the category, it just says, oh, what's this look like as far as a tree structure, and spits it out, and it creates those all automatically. So you don't have to worry about assigning them manually. That's all behind the scenes once it's set up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Setting up your hierarchy and your master data structure is what will lead to a lot of success later on, right? So, one of the things I mentioned in the webinar you came to, Marshall, right, is oftentimes, right, as an SI, we get asked, okay, get to it and start building it. But if I were to advise how to do it, right, is let's think about the structure and the hierarchy and how you want to relate objects rather than just go stick them into a PIM and try to figure that out later, right? So doing that kind of upfront work has tremendous benefit. And we use that time to do the enhancements, right? Thinking long-term. Okay, so if we've got this hierarchy, we know we have this data, what else kinds of things should we have in there? And then we're able to go enhance it, or at least know that that's what's coming in the future on a phase 2, phase 3, whatever, to be able to make the system work optimally.
One of the advantages I had is that I have a lot of experience in database work, but so does CoreShop, CSS Commerce. So what would happen is they would say, can we have that spreadsheet, please? And they would look at the spreadsheet and go, oh, okay, this is how we're going to organize it in a way, so tell us where this is being sourced from. You obviously you put it in a spreadsheet, it had to come from somewhere, right?
Yep.
And then you build a script that says, oh, okay, I'm going to take that source and based on what I can find from it, I'll create that automatically for you. So I think a lot of those problems should just almost go away completely unless you don't like the tree it built for one reason or another, in which case you just say, hey, CoreShop, CSS Commerce, please adjust this so it doesn't appear here, it appears there. And then you do that once, and then forevermore, it's working correctly.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I just had a question. I lost it. Shoot, what was it? No. Yeah, another thing that we were looking at is, our ERP has the ability to store alternative part numbers, keywords, different things like that. And obviously, I think you put that all into the PIM too, because that's another thing we face. Is it'd be nice on the website if you put in, hey, competitive crosses. You could put that in there too. That's a big part of our business, where someone types in a competitor's part number and it goes to ours. Another one is items get discontinued all the time, and right now, sometimes we'll leave them on so the person can find it, but then we'll tag it with an alternative, and they'll say alternative, and they can click on it. But it'd be nice if you could remove that item, but if the person types in the old part number, it just takes them right to the new one. We have the ability to do that in our ERP. It's a little bit messy, and then we got to write code to connect it to Magento.
We do that again for that plumbing because of the number of SKUs, and as you said, things come on and off, and being able to relate. I mean, one of their problems was they wanted to be able to relate their part number, the manufacturer's part number, competitive part numbers, common description, right? Different things. All of that relationally is much more easily manageable inside of a PIM. And then my experience, Marshall, is that ERPs often have a limit on text, not all of them, right? But very often we'll run.
Ours does.
Yeah. So we'll run into this thing where you have a very limited description to be able to pull and design against. PIM doesn't have that, right? We can put in tremendously long amounts of information. Not that you necessarily want to always display that, because you can decide what to display, but for the ability to do what you just described is really important. And that's where I think the superiority of a PIM versus doing it in an ERP works better. And then you can take it back and relate it into the ERP, or vice versa. You can have it in the ERP, but you're really displaying it to the website and making decisions around those things inside the web, inside of Magento and a PIM.
Yeah, and so that's kind of a really good example. And so our ERP, the short description is what we call only allows, 43 characters.
Mm-hmm.
There's an extended description that's got an amount. And then, so oftentimes we have our P21 short description. We have that extended information. We have a short description for our website, which is totally usually different than what the ERP system is.
Right.
And we've got a long description for that. So that's kind of the envisioning is, okay, you've got part XYZ, here's your ERP description, here's your short description for the website, here's your long description. And then even another little twist in that is we do a lot of vendor managed inventory, where some items might need to have a really unique description to fit on a label that goes on a bin somewhere. So you would have that too. And oftentimes we're always recreating it and redoing the work over and over again.
Oh, you've just justified a PIM right there. Like that is
that's what I needed to hear.
Perfect use case for it. I mean, that's exactly why you have them, because I had the same issue. I had these little tiny, descriptions in PIM, which work for production, for assembly line kind of thing, but not in on a website. And not to mention the category tree that they maintain there is terrible too. So I think once, so let's say you hire Core Shop. I apologize. Core Shop is in my brain.
It's okay, Ted.
You hire
just as long as you keep me hired, Ted. I don't care what you call.
Yeah. So once like the kickoff will be, hey, can we see your spreadsheets? And then we're going to try and map this. And then the first blush at it is like pretty good, but you're like, you know what? I really don't. And then so after a course of 3 or 4 different iterations, it's pretty darn good. In fact, I build some of my descriptions based on the information from PIM. I'll just fold it all together and make a description. Once, but that comes like maybe version 2 or version 3. And by the version 3 or 4, you're just like, I don't have to do anything anymore for this. It's all done. It's just going from ERP into the system and I don't have to touch it. And that's where I had to be, because and our business margins aren't huge on the product itself. So I've always got to be conscious of, what I'm spending versus how much margin the site, makes.
Yeah.
Yep. We're kind of the same business. Website margin, I think we do okay, but the general business that we do every day with customers, electrical contractors, original equipment manufacturers, that stuff's down and dirty usually.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I ran into. So I that was why I just totally had to focus on automation.